All right, so we're 8.2, stock market data. Yeah. So like I said, shares of stock represent what? You own a share of stock, what do you own? What we talked about earlier. Part of the company, part of one of their company, right? And you can trade, buy, sell, swap those shares of stock on an open market, okay? And one of the biggest markets where that happens is the New York Stock Exchange, the NYSE. And probably maybe you've seen it in movies, TV, where it's this frantic on this trading floor with pieces of paper flying everywhere, and somebody buy this at 10,000 to sell, and the stockbrokers are down there and they're going crazy, and a lot of guys end up jumping off a building because of stress. But that's one of there's other ones, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and Chicago Board of Exchange and stuff like that. But the main one, the big ones, the New York Stock Exchange, where most of the stocks you know about are traded and they're bought and sold. Right? People think, okay, I'll make a profit here. I think the price is going to stay up. I'm going to sell it, right? But then suddenly it didn't, right? You lost money. Okay? Maybe a gain money. So the stock market, therefore, this fits in, right? And they mentioned New York Stock Exchange. Now, trading generally happens on the New York Stock Exchange. I don't know if they had that in here or not. Right? The trading hours are from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day. Right? And that's the time allotted traditionally for trading, buying, selling shares of stock. Now, however, in recent years, we've had this thing called the interwebs, where you can now buy and sell shares of stock any old time of night or day that you like. Okay? It doesn't get reflected in the stock's value until the next morning, right? It's called after-hours trading, right? And so in the morning, the opening price of the stock might be different than the close of the day before. And that'll be because of these after-hours trading on the internet. Okay, but let's go through some of these things that they listed here. Okay, so the last, this is how you might see. There's other ways that this data can be displayed. This is just one of them, right? So when you see the last posted, okay, that refers to the price of the last trade. Okay. The price of the stock of the last trade. Like the last time somebody bought and sold it, how much did they buy and sell it for? Okay. Sometimes you might see that listed as closed. Like in your book, it'll either say last, was when they say the close of the market at 4 p.m. each day. That's generally considered the last trade, but then you got to keep in mind after-hour stuff. Okay. You might see that as also listed instead of last as close, like what was the stock's value at the end of the day at 4 p.m. on the New York Stock Exchange. Okay. Then they have the open price. Now this happens at 9:30 in the morning. Okay. The open is the first. It's the price at the start of the day. Okay. Trading day. So this is the price of that stock at start of day. Okay. Now, it used to be that the close and the open were the same, right? Before there were after-hours trading, right? Nothing happened between 4 p.m. through the night to 9:30 a.m. So if the stock closed at $20 a share at 4 p.m., well, that would be its open at 9:30 in the morning would be $20. But now people are buying and selling overnight. So if it closed at $20, it might open at 25 or 15 or something like that. So if the opens will be different now in this brave new world. necessarily than the close the day before, okay? Then the close was just the final price at day's end, right? Final price. Not at end of day, 4 o'clock. But again, keep in mind after hours trading, okay? So as the stocks get purchased and sold during the day, they have high and low values, right? The price goes up and down throughout the course of the day. Maybe there's more demand for it, somebody is willing to pay more for it, so that means the price goes up, right? If there's less demand, the price goes down. And it fluctuates up and down all day long, okay? And so there's a daily high that can be listed. So a high, right? That'd be the daily high trade price. Daily, not yearly or anything like that. Daily high value. And of course, the low would be the what? Daily low value. You know what those marks are made, right? Those are ditto marks. And yes, the same as what's above them. You see those? Is that too old? Is that too archaic? Anyway, now you've seen them. Okay, now volume. It's another important piece of information because the stock could be trading at a certain high or low price, but how many shares were traded, right? The volume is a number of shares traded in a day. You might also see that listed as sales, right? Another word for volume could be sales, right? So that would be the number of shares traded in a day. Number of shares traded in a day, one day, okay? So maybe you'll see a wild fluctuation in the price of the stock. So we hear someone on the news say, but the trading volume was low, so it's a little less impactful, okay? And then, of course, there's 52-week high, right? So now we're getting out of the day. I think these are self-explanatory, right? 52-week high. Do I need to write that down? 52-week low. I don't think I need to write those definitions down. It's in the name, right? And then change. So change is really kind of an important thing to look at, right? Change is just today's close minus the previous day's close. Like they close at 4 o'clock, right? And let's say the previous day's close was $20, and today closed at 25. What was the change? Plus, right? Positive $5, right? So today's close minus yesterday's close is the change, okay? So that's today's close. It's always in that order, right? That way, let's say yesterday it closed at 20, and the end of the day today it closed at 15. It's still today's 15 minus 20, which that gives you what though? Not positive 5. Negative 5. That way you know it went down $5 a day, right? So today's close minus yesterday's close. Or previous day, like, you know, they don't trade on the weekend. Monday minus previous day close. Okay? So keep in mind, you might see, like in your problem set, you might see either last or close. I mean the same thing, either way, right? And sales or volume, same thing, okay? Right? And usually the change is as a percent, by the way. Percent change. When you said the $5, that's actually known as net change, or the actual dollar amount, but we know how to do percents, right? And most of the time it's percent, because then if it's percent, then you can compare it directly with other stocks and their values, right? Because maybe one stock is in the $20 range, and the other one's in the $600 range, right? And they both go up $5. Whoa, hey, it's not as great for the 600 one, right? As a percent, so you compare them directly. Then that changes the dollar amount. Okay, so let's take a look at some of our examples here. Let me extend that page now, don't I? So in our book, example 1. What do I got going on here? And so by the way, if you look back on page 470, to answer some of these questions, we're going to use page 470. So let's look at 470 real quick before we start answering example 1. So you see this this data that they present, right, for XYZ Corporation, and it has the data for 2 dates. What are the 2 dates? May 5th and, okay, so 2 separate days worth of data, okay? And notice they have, you know, under May 5th, they have last, which you could consider like close, right? And the trade time, that's really important. Notice the change, okay? That's as a percent, right? And then the open, what it opened at, $50 one day and 10 cents, next day $50 and 60 cents. There's your 52-week high and low for each day. Now notice how they do the sales. What's another name for sales? What do they say? Volume, right? The numbers are traded that day. Notice how they list it, right? How is it listed? In what? In hundreds, or it could be in thousands, or it could be in millions, right? Because, you know, there's a lot of shares out there. Displaying this data might get really cumbersome. You've got to put all those zeros at the end of it. So, like on May 5th, was it 28,000 shares traded? No, you got to tack another 2 zeros on the end of that, right? Another 280,000. 2,800,000, right? 2.8 million, okay? And they had a low dirty day of 49. So you got the 2. So we kind of know what's on that data display there. Let's go over and look at example 1 now. And these are pretty simple. So what was the difference between the high and low price? High and low prices on May 5th. What was the high price? $52.60. We're on May 5th, right? $52.60, and difference means subtract. What was the low price on May 5th? $49 even. And that should be easy to read without a calculator. The difference was what? Positive $3.60. Okay. So it increased in value during the day, right? $3.60. Well, that's not too hard. I don't think I need to do the check, do I? And it's the same thing on May 12th. I think you guys got that right. Let's move to example 2. I think we're still using the data there. So for example 2, on May 12th, what was the actual value? We just addressed that, right? That's why Z shares posted, traded, traded in thousands. So what does it say were the sales of the volume on May 12th? What does it say in the chart? What is it? It says 32,000, doesn't it? But that's not how many shares were traded. What do we have to do with that number? Yeah, in other words, multiply it by 100, right? So that gives us, morning. You are? Okay. All right. Have a seat somewhere spread out so we don't have to wear a mask. I'll have to get you some stuff here in a minute. So 32,000 times 100, let's see, that's 3, 2, let's figure out zeros and the 2 more, right? So we'll go 3, put a comma there. So how many were traded? 3,200,000 shares traded that day. 1 second. I'm going to kind of jump in and keep up where we're at right now. Here's the book. What page am I on? 471, stock market stuff. Okay? So 3,200,000. And then they want us to write that number, let's see, instead of hundreds, now write it in thousands. So we're going from the actual number. It was displayed in hundreds here, right? So let's take the actual number and write it in thousands. So we had a, so what do we take off of that to write it in thousands? How many zeros? 3, right? So what would be this number in thousands of shares? So it'd be 3,200,000. Right? Does that make sense? So you might get a homework problem where they ask you to convert from like hundreds to millions, but so your best bet is to first get it into the actual real number, right? And then back out the number of zeros. That makes sense. Okay? Anybody confused on that one? 200,000 shares. Okay. Real quick, just to, we don't have to write it down. The check that goes with it. On May 5th, what was the actual value posted? 28,000. What was it actually? 2,800,000, right? If you wanted to write that in thousands, you chop off 3 zeros again, right? You get the idea. Okay. All right. Let's go to example 3. Start getting into some of the other computations here. All right. At what price did it close on May 4th? May 4th. What are the 2 dates they give us? May 5th and May 12th. Well, how do we know what it closed at May 4th? What do we need to look at? The what? No. Remember, because so last could also mean like a trade that happened earlier in the day. Sometimes it's synonymous with close. But look at something, or what else in there would tell you? No. Would tell you, okay, how it changed. From the day before. How about the change row? So I gave you a blatant enough hint there. Well, no. So on May 5th, the change from the previous day was positive 261. Follow me? So from whatever it was on the 4th, it's up 261. So how do we figure out what it was? Subtract it, right? If you get confused, right? So let's call this May 4th plus change, right? So May 4th, we don't know what it was, plus up 261, and that's supposed to equal what? 5220, right? And that is the, they have that under lat, right? Let's call that last. So sometimes kids get confused and say, oh, they're going to subtract the positive. Yeah. If you think of it algebraically like this, right? And now we acknowledge the subtraction happens naturally, right? We might have made the error before. So now you subtract it from both sides. And what do we end up getting? You just subtract those two. $49.59. So that's what it was, right? We use that change to figure out what it was the day before. If it's up 261, okay, that means it must have been at 49.59 the day before. Let's try the check on this one and see if you kind of understand what's going on here. All right. So read that check over. It's a lot like this one, but I think it has to do with the May 12th column. Please. So do we work out what we're going to do? Because if you set up this way, you see you have to add the negative, right? Because it was higher the day before. So what do you guys get? Everybody agree with that? So it was at 51. Got to put a 1 in there. 0.53. Can't read that. $51.53. All right. Any questions on that? Right. Look at the change from the day before. That'll tell you what you either add or subtract. But remember, it's going to be like the opposite of what we're from. All right. Over to example 4. Here's the May 4th closing price. We got that from example 3, right? What was the May 4th closing price? I guess we'll go to the next page here. Yeah. Okay. So let's just get on the May 4th close from the previous example. It was $49.59, right? Okay. We want us to, and the May 5th, what was the May 5th open, by the way? Say it again. $50.10. Okay. To find the difference in prices as a percent, right? So, all right, so percent, remember it's part over whole, right? But the other way to look at percent, guys remember new minus old divided by old? Like get the difference between now and then and divide it by what it was then. So this would be a handy thing to know here. So new, you've done it before, minus old price. And we want to compare it to the old price, so divided by old. Again, times 100 goes a percent, right? All right, so let's plug in there. What's the new price? So we do 50.10 minus the old, 49.59, divided by the old, right? Because we're comparing it to that, times 100. Now listen, guys, when you put this in your calculator, I know if you had me in method, I'd tell you be careful, right? Because that horizontal fraction line is also a grouping symbol. So if you're going to do this all at once, you're probably going to want to put parentheses around that stuff in the top. Okay, otherwise it'll come out wrong. So go ahead and push those buttons there. And what's the percent we get? To the nearest 100, 2 decimals. Yeah, I'm going to have to actually issue. What do we got? Come on, it's pretty quick. No, this is the percent. Yes. 1.03%. Is this an increase or decrease? Because it's positive, right? If you do new minus old, you got to do it in that order. New minus old divided by old. Right? This is an increase in value. All right? Be on that. New minus old divided by old. All right? Let's try the check with that. Can I read that over? Should operate quite a bit like this. What is our percent, kids? Sure about that? So.
Well, you wrote increase, so I thought you read decrease.
Okay, but what should go in front of the Negative. Yes. Negative 1.8% decrease. Okay, well, I know. It seems redundant, right? But I want to make sure. Put your positive and negatives in there. And that's the whole reason for subtracting new minus 4. Okay, so come out as a positive or negative. And then that way you know it's an increase and a decrease, and that's why I wrote it. Okay? All right. Move on to example 5. All right, we're on that one. Example 5. And maybe I'll have some time to use some spreadsheet stuff here. All right, on May 6th, they announced a decrease in earnings. So that's like a thing a company will announce, right? If they don't, like there's people out there that calculate what the earnings of a company should be in the future. And if they miss that earnings mark, right, what do you think happens to the value of their stock? It will go down, right, if you miss your earnings projections. Okay, it's one thing that'll make a stock value go down. And then there's a whole thing, how much stock somebody calculated what it ought to be. Well, generally, they do quite a bit. Okay, so what was that? Color price go down. It closed at 44.37. Express the net change, right? So the net change would be the dollar amount of change. Express that as a percentage from May 5th to May 6th. Okay? So again, are we going to do new minus old? Okay, so what would be the new? And the old? 5250, right? Divided by what? That very same old. Did I mess something up? I heard you say something. I didn't mess anything up. Times 100. And when you put that in your calculator, Carly, what do we get? Would you please? I want to make an example out of you. No, I want you to get it right through humiliation and judgment.
Is the last different from the close?
Well, most of the time.
I got
Well, okay, it's
15.49.
negative 15. What they say? I can get to that question in just a second. And then just to the let's just call it negative 15% because that's negative, right? Negative 15.49. Negative 15%, which is a decrease as you go. So last and like they can mean the same thing, right? Sometimes interchangeable, but last often refers to the last trade that happened. It could be that day, right? But you'll have to know like what the data, if they're telling you that last means the previous day is closed, and that's how you have to use it. It can be a little confusing. You know? Just wait until it's close. All right. So you get the idea. So most of these are just your percentage new minus old divided by old. Okay. Up top here. So look, this part up top, just doing that gives you the net change, the dollar amount, right? To get that as a percent, you got to throw in that other stuff there. Okay. All right. Now, example 6. This is the thing that we use Excel for. Why don't we take our break first? We'll do the check on this one. Let's take our 5-6 minute break here.